This video is sponsored by Skillshare. This is a camera I'm really excited to talk about today. I haven't felt this genuinely excited and surprised by a piece of gear in a long time. The camera I'll be talking about is not new and it might have been forgotten, but I think it deserves to be back in the spotlight. I thought it would be refreshing to focus on something that is not a new release, and with new gear coming out every year, I think we forget too quickly and we move on too quickly from the gems that are already out there. This is a little jewel of a camera, the Fujifilm XT2, one of the first in the XT line, released 9 years ago. I've been wanting a smaller digital camera for a while now, as I will admit that my Fujifilm XT2 can be in the way sometimes. These are just my first impressions. I've only been using this camera for a few weeks now, and I'm probably gonna follow up this video in 6 months or so. I'm quite familiar with the XT line. I had Fujifilm XT4 for years and really put that camera through its paces before moving up to the XH line. When George picked this one up, I was a bit confused on why we picked up an older XT camera. But it made sense. We're not planning to do video on this camera, and that's fine because of course the video specs aren't nearly as good as newer Fujis. Size-wise, it's obviously smaller than the XH2 and I think even smaller than the XT4, so it's perfect for an everyday or street photography camera. Another downgrade from newer XT or from the XH line is the lack of stabilization, which I personally don't mind, but I know that for some people that's a priority. For those new here, hi, hello. I'm currently traveling and I'm currently focusing on travel and documentation photography, so my priorities when it comes to gear have changed. I've been researching something a bit more small and discreet, and I feel a bit awkward walking around with a big camera because I don't really want to draw attention to me and I don't want to scream tourist. I've also been running a YouTube series on prime lenses, trying to find the best everyday travel lens for me, and I've picked one that I actually really love. It's the Voigtlander 27mm. Pretty much all photos you see in this video were shot with it. If you're familiar with my work, you know that I have an interest in capturing still life, interiors and landscape. But I've always been fascinated by travel and documentary photography, especially capturing human candid moments and storytelling. To improve even more, I recently took a Sean Dalton class on Skillshare, which breaks down the why and how of travel photography with practical tips you can use right away. One big takeaway for me was to shoot more intentionally rather than just snapping away without any purpose. In Kyoto and Osaka, I focused on tiles, architecture, local life and light, and came home with a set of images that tell a story about these cities. Not all photos were perfect, but letting go of perfectionism and practicing patience was such an important lesson for me. Fun fact, I actually learned the basics of photography back in 2018 with the Sean Dalton course, and that made me really confident behind the camera. Skillshare is accessible and full of classes across art, design, illustration and more, taught by professional creatives. The first 500 people to use my link or scan the QR code in the description get a 1 month free trial of Skillshare. I was positively surprised when I got home and I started editing these photos. The files were excellent and the starting point for my edits was already quite strong, so I didn't have to tweak my usual editing or colors too much. That said, the dynamic range felt a bit limited, which didn't help with a diffusion filter on and extremely sunny white skies. I haven't tried the JPEG straight off camera yet, but film sims are a highly requested topic, so make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on future videos about film simulations. For my first impressions, I would say that the XH2 images look a bit sharper and hold more detail, even with a black mist filter on all the shots. I also found out cool cropping more while still retaining quality. That said, I'm not suggesting the XT2's images are worse, they just have a softer look which I actually really like. It really comes down to what you are chasing, whether that's softness and character or precision and sharpness. I mostly use this lens in a manual mode with the Voigtlander 27mm. The XT2 has a zoom focusing mode that mimics rangefinder cameras, something that is pretty unique to Fuji. It might sound a bit nerdy and niche, but I love that when you change the aperture, the focus range updates on the screen, and that's because this Voigtlander lens has electronic contacts and communicates the aperture setting to the camera. With adapted vintage lenses, the camera just assumes you're shooting without a lens attached, so you don't get that feature. My favorite thing about this camera is the build and the design, and you can call me frivolous for caring about aesthetics, but I don't really mind. My X-T4 got really scuffed after 4 years of use, and my new XH2 already has paint starting to chip after just 6 months. The X-T2, I believe, is the last camera in this line made in Japan, and I love that I'm using a made in Japan camera with a made in Japan lens here in Japan. My first impressions holding and handling this camera was, wow, I low-key missed the dial, but I still think they look pretty and that they are actually functional. I got quite used to wheels because I'm using the XH2 and the Sony cameras, and obviously they don't have dials. I still think that that's an easy way and more practical way to change settings. But you know, this is a Fujifilm signature feature. Now obviously Nikon has done that as well with the Nikon ZF, and it's obviously was made to recreate that film-like shooting experience, and it's definitely something that you either hate or love. It's a small detail, but a bright LCD definitely makes a difference, especially if you live in a sunny country. I don't have many notes on this because, as usual with Fujifilm, the LCD is quite good and bright, and the EVF is also quite good. I wanted to share a reflection from someone that normally doesn't really care that much about gear. Since starting YouTube and following camera content more closely and becoming aware of all new releases, especially in September, I think it's all quite overwhelming. It just made me realize how quickly we move on from all the cameras and how we do have this constant feeling that what we have is not good enough. But with that being said, I really do appreciate, you know, new tech, innovation and progress. My X-T4 really was a fantastic camera. I never really tried the X-T5 since. I didn't feel it was a big enough jump from the X-T4, but it served me well for years professionally. But of course I do understand that for some people the X-T2 might fall short on some must-have features like stronger video specs or in-body stabilization. So to recap, I do think this camera is great due to its design and build quality. The image quality is excellent, particularly when paired with a sharp lens like the Voigtlander I use, which renders colors beautifully. Most importantly, it's a small yet powerful camera that you actually want to take everywhere. It's not exactly boxable unless you've got big pockets, but once it's around your neck, you hardly notice it's there. For travel or street photography where you want to stay low-key while still producing beautiful images, I think it's a great choice. I hope this video serves as reminders that you don't necessarily need to update your camera. You know, and this sounds quite cliche, but I do think that at the end of the day, it's not really about the camera, but it's more about your photography skills. And of course, having a good lens definitely helps, and if you're thinking about buying something new, don't underestimate the older models. Some of my all-time favorite cameras are from the 70s and the 90s. So let me know if you've tried this one before and if you enjoyed it as much as I did. I took a little break from the newsletter, but I'll be back soon with a new email, so make sure to subscribe to my newsletter. I left a link in the description box. And a huge thanks to Skillshare again for sponsoring this video. You can find the link in the description as well if you want to check them out. And that's everything from me today. I'll see you in the next one.